Good evening again, once again. This is a foreigner in the Philippines, and the last video I did about not being overwhelmed. You can be overawed, but don't be overwhelmed when you hear somebody do something so much better than you that it just, well, overwhelms you. It should inspire you, but that was in the last video. But it inspired me to talk about this, about how with your imagination you can prepare yourself for a challenge ahead. Now, when you're a musician or an actor, you have to go for auditions, and on auditions you are under the most incredible stress. We've all seen movies where budding actors go for auditions. They go for auditions, and they are in the coldest reception atmosphere ever. Like if they have to walk on stage, and whoever is listening to them is down in semi-darkness in a row of seats, a few back, and they're going to listen. So they say, okay, go ahead. And they have to, in that moment, they have to pull out of the bag, so to speak, their best performance. How can you use your imagination, say, in an instant like that, where you've never done this before? You might be on America's Got Talent, you might be on the Filipinos Got Talent, British Got Talent, where you're there, and you're not only are you there to do an audition and pull your best, but you've got to pull it out of the best by in front of 4 or 5 judges who are all talented at what they do, plus an audience sitting behind them, and you've got to do your best. A friend of mine a long time ago, who had studied a lot of things about this and has since written about 15 books, I was going for an audition, and I'm talking to him, and I said that I was nervous. He said, what you need to do is, if possible, go to where you're going to do the audition and go in and get a mental picture, a mental video of what you are going to be faced with. And then, in your time between then and the now of doing the audition, you imagine walking on stage, you imagine feeling confident, you imagine knowing that you are going to pass the audition, and then you imagine the music starting, the introduction starts, and you don't feel any terror. You feel the adrenaline rush, which you need to pull the ultimate performance out of the bag. But you imagine them loving what you do. You imagine winning. You imagine all of those emotions that are associated with success. And you do that many times. And you do not allow feelings or emotions which entertain failure. You just don't do that. And I'll give you a little tip that I used many times since I first saw this. But I was looking through the newspaper once in the UK when I was a young man. Yes, I used to be a young man. I think I did anyway, but memory gets to me. And I remember looking through the letters and reading the letters. And I always remember this letter as a housewife. I think it was a housewife in Birmingham. And a housewife in Birmingham had said, she said, when I do something, I do a project, like if I make something and I'm, honey?
Yeah, I will eat it.
So a housewife in Birmingham is how I remember it. And she said, whenever I do a project, and if it's something that I'm a little bit nervous about whether I can do it, I just imagine that as I work, my friends are looking at how I work, and I hear them. In my head, I hear them saying, wow, how clever you are. What you're doing is just so beautiful. It's just incredible. You know? How can you do that? It's just beyond me. I wish I could do that. And she said, I hear all of these accolades, all of this praise about how good what I'm doing is. And she said, I somehow do that good. So whatever comes first, chicken or the egg or the praise or the finished thing, is a mystery. But she said, it works for me. I hear the praise, I do the job, and it works out great. So that's a lesson I learned. And now if I do a job, I imagine people telling me that I'm doing it well. It's a heck of a lot more effective than having a voice in your head that says, oh my God, what a mess up you made of that. No. Wow, there you go again. This is going to be your best ever, is how I try to hear it. It's not easy, by the way, but you must try. Thanks for listening in. This is A Foreigner in the Philippines.